Hello, everyone. Welcome to the opening presentation of the AURORA Biennial 2020-2021, titled Afterwards Was Already Before. I'm Monica Salazar, Director of Programming for AURORA. Thank you so much for joining us today. This presentation is for those who are new to AURORA, but also ones that may not know the history of the organization and the biennial event. And also, we're going to take this opportunity to introduce how AURORA has developed this year from an international public art biennial of light, video, and sound, which is free and open to the public, to now a multifaceted organization focused on art, community, and technology. Our biennial 2020-21 curatorial team is comprised of Brooklyn-based curator Noam Segal and Dallas-based curators Tamara Johnson and Trey Byrne. Noam Segal's practice focuses on contextualizing and supporting artists and producing new media art. Segal received her PhD in philosophy at Bar Ilan University in Tel Aviv and has collaborated with numerous international artists, museums, and nonprofits alike. She's presented the work of artists such as Neil Balufa, Hope L., Sharon Hayes, Henri Salah, Paulina Baudry, and Renata Lorenz at prestigious international biennials and institutions, including Palais de Tokyo, Brooklyn Academy of Music, Performa in New York City, the Museum of Photography in Chicago, and Tel Aviv Museum of Art, among others. Our associate curators, Tamara Johnson and Trey Byrne, co-founded Dallas's Sweet Pass Sculpture Park, an outdoor exhibition space on a 1-acre plot of land in West Dallas in 2018. Since opening, they've worked with over 100 local and international artists, university students, and various organizations and institutions like the Boys and Girls Club, the Nasher Sculpture Center, and the Dallas Museum of Art and North Park Center. Johnson, who received her MFA from the Rhode Island School of Design, is currently a visiting lecturer in sculpture at the Southern Methodist University. And Byrne received his MFA from the Savannah College of Art and Design. Before moving to Dallas, they both lived and worked in New York City. Our curators are going to offer insights into this year's biennial program and our opening project, which Noam Segal will introduce, Salute, a sound installation and performance created by Brooklyn-based artist Marina Rosenfeld. She's also going to have a brief discussion with artist and musician Jess Garland, who is based in Dallas. They will talk about Jess Garland's upcoming work as part of our biennial, which will be also presented later this year. We'll end with a brief discussion between our associate curators, participating artist Jan Tichy, and a couple of his Dallas-based student collaborators, followed by a Q&A, which will be open for all panelists to answer questions. And also, if you have questions after the presentation, you can also, of course, write to us anytime at info@dallasaurora.com. Now I'm going to hand it over to our AURORA co-founder and executive director, Joshua King. Thank you and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Monica. And I would like to also welcome everybody here today and say thank you for joining us today. And I'd like to start my conversation off like every executive director should start their conversations off by thanking our sponsors, our foundations, and the individuals that have made all of this possible. From the TurningPoint Foundation, YPO Gold Maverick Dallas, Visit Dallas, Hartland and Mackie Family Foundation, Downtown Dallas Inc., the M.O.B Foundation, Preciate, Paperlyte, Headington Companies, City of Dallas Office of Arts and Culture, Ruibal, and InLight Gobos, along with the founding media sponsor, the Dallas Morning News. All of us at AURORA would like to say thank you. But I'd like to tell you more about the 4 reasons why AURORA is here today. A 2030 vision, an exploration, an experiment, and an expansion. In the beginning of 2020, the AURORA co-founders and our executive team came together to celebrate our 10-year anniversary. But we also came together to define the vision of what AURORA would look like in 2030. Because to us, it's important to know why. Why is AURORA trying to explore the meaning of tomorrow? Why is it important to never stop experimenting? And why is it important to expand the future of art? Now, when we came together in 2020, we did not know that March of this year was going to be one of the most historical months of our lifetime. So about April of 2020, our vision of 2030 was turned into how do we survive next month? And that brings me to how we began to explore. Because there are times in life where you have to continue to explore the unknown. And there's times in life when the way you got to where you are today will not get you to the where you want to go tomorrow. And the Aurora Artist Relief Fund is exactly how Aurora wants to continue to directly support our artists of tomorrow. With individual, non-restricted $4,000 grants, Aurora is making it possible for our region's artists to navigate and survive COVID-19. And to consider why it's so important to always experiment as we move forward. Area 3 was an experiment we threw together, and we created it as part of our Aurora Expanded program. Because in August, we had to turn to our local artists and propose a partnership experiment where the artist, the staff, the venue, and Aurora had to put everything on the line to find a new way forward. And to date, we've had 16 local artists come together to create 11 installations in over 100,000 square feet of a downtown Dallas parking garage. And in the first 30 days, Area 3 has seen over 10,000 people drive through this cultural experiment. So this experiment has helped us raise over $150,000 in less than 30 days to help support our artists and to continue Aurora's vision into 2030. Something that I'm proud to talk about today, and something that I want to leave with discussing, is the chance that we have in front of us. The chance to expand the future of art. Because the future of art is why we all spend the long hours on Zoom and in Zoom webinars and Zoom panel discussions. It's why we dive deep into our Excel budgets, reworking and reworking those budgets. And that is why we spend the endless hours fundraising. And all of those come together to make it worth our while. Because I'm sitting here today, I know the team is making something that's impossible possible. With the 2020-2021 biennial titled Afterwards Was Already Before. And with the Artist Relief Fund and Area 3, Aurora is becoming a year-round organization that expands the future of art. Now, I have the privilege today to introduce you to one of the minds behind the helm of Afterwards Was Already Before. So I'd like to turn this over to Noam so we can get a glimpse into the next year.
Thanks, Joshua, for this inspiring introduction. And thanks everyone for joining us. I'm very happy to be here today. It's been a long journey, and I want to start also with a few short thank you to Aurora's team. They're here behind the scenes, but working endlessly. Corey, Marsha, Erica, Joshua and Shane, Monica, and my associate curators. It's been an interesting ride, but I'm so happy that we are here and we landed where we are. I want to thank you for your commitment and your devotion and your insistence of bringing this project to life. So thank you so much. And not only you guys have been a part of it, and now I want to dive a little bit to our expanded participants. Afterwards was already before owed its existence to the communities of Dallas, Texas. During this year and this year of work, because we actually started working on this biennial in 2019, we managed to create a support system that is composed by artists and educators from different high schools around Dallas, activists from different community organizations, activists for the environment, anti-racist groups, community groups in Dallas like Break Bread, Break Borders, or Swan Strings, musicians, young and established ones, professional dancers, engineers, designers. All of you, together with the artists, have made us, have helped us in shape up this project. And specifically, I want to thank the artists that stayed with us even in these fluctuating times, these changing conditions, and with all of the inconsistencies that happened thanks to COVID-19. Thank you so much for staying committed for this operation. So to give you a glimpse into what AURORA is now, I would like to start from the beginning. In 2019, when we conceived this biennial, we titled it How to Live and Die Well in a Thick Present. And as we all know, since then, present got thicker and thicker. And the opportunity, or let's say the option of dying well, proving to be misguided in the first place. So we decided to focus on the interdependence, on notion of cyclicality as they appear in present time. We had to mutate accordingly with the virus. So our program now is actually comprised of 3 different cycles or phases of presentation, which each of them will have a changing duration and different artists and different ways of presentation. Some would be online and some would be physical in Dallas. That will enable us flexibility in maintaining public health guidelines, first and foremost, and then after that also support our artists with financial flexibility and to respond to otherworldly, unpredictable events. So this year, I think more than previous times, maybe the biennial is heavily invested in Dallas and its people and its histories. And the centrality of the city is expressed here through the sites we deal with and the groups and the people we're working with. So basically by creating those support systems between residents, creators, and educators, we managed to create collaborative projects of different scopes. And with that, I guess all of those collaborative projects had to involve a lot of curation, and that had to be done in a very speculative manner this year. Art making remotely is making art remotely is a very challenging thing to do, especially when we think about the site specificity and time specificity that we're dealing with now. So I want to jump and just share with you a few ideas about the first offering we're going to have. The work is Salute by Marina Rosenfeld. This work is about to open on November 6th in Dallas at 1200 Ross Avenue. I will read a short bio of Marina and then we'll go back to the larger scheme of things. So just to say, Marina Rosenfeld is a composer and an artist based in New York. Her works explored acoustic architectures and experimental forms of participation and sociality in sound installation and performance. Her work has been presented by Park Avenue Armory, MoMA, New York, The Kitchen, New York, the Whitney and the Guggenheim Museum, 2 Whitney biennials, the 2016 Montreal Biennial, and Documenta 14. She will have in 2021 a retrospective in Kunsthaus, Baselland. She will also issue Death Star, which is a double LP by Shelter Press, followed by a monograph to be published in 2019. Marina also teaches at the MFA programs of Bard College and Brooklyn College, and she's currently a research fellow with experiments in art and technology with Bell Labs and Nokia. So Salute, this project that will be held in a 12 stories parking garage, registers each visitor's entry into a kind of a temporary and distant publicness. Within their protective skin of their vehicle, they go into this thickly amplified and augmented trumpet salutation that echoes and decays around them as the visitor ascends the labyrinth architecture of this parking garage. The ideas that stand behind it are both in terms of how we can explore the construction of the public and to ask who gets to be part of the public and how we as individuals and collective, but also as species. And when I say species, we also have technology in mind. How all we are quilted into this public when we know that our current apparatus is highly atomized and isolated. We will have a panel to introduce Marina's work in more in-depth manner on November 6th, so I welcome all of you to join us. Coming back to afterwards was already before, I want to also mention ideas of cyclicality. Cyclicality is a big thing for us this year. It was there from the beginning, even before the virus hit. And unlike traditionally, Aurora deals with technology as a platform. And this is something that we considered a lot this year. The fact that most of the artworks we get to see right now are mediated through the screen. And it was very important to us also to provide the opportunity to come together and to actually be physically in one space at a time. So in that, technology will serve as an anchoring point to think about the politics of the loop and repetition. So ideas concerning the digital loop as a format can expose our blind spots. They seem more appropriate now than any other time in history, I guess. We haven't lived in other times, but it seems very fair to this moment. We're gonna try to unpack those repetitive events, and it will be made by looking into Dallas histories, but also thinking about these histories according to or in relation to biological, seasonal, economic, and political cycles. So by that, we want to deal with issues concerning also social justice, racial justice, different feminisms, and environmental justice. We hope that sequences within each trajectory will allow us to reflect on the way that repetitious technological formats can function also as systems of support. One thing that will be definitely central to all of these acts will be the clash between the digital sphere tightly structured sense of duration and the unpredictability and plasticity of the natural world. These clashes would be central to this biennial. I think we all recently learned what happens when we fall out of sync with our environment, whether if it's a world pandemic or fires in California, issues of pollution or handling waste, toxic waste. We are seeing histories repeating, and as we see also how bridal is our connection with time and its experience. So by that, I want to jump to the projects. I want to mention just the first project that will be introduced by my colleagues, Trey and Tamara. This project by Jan Tichy, who's here with us. I'm just going to mention that the end part of this project will be centered around the iconic building by EMP, the City Hall of Dallas. And then IMP had some interesting ideas about hierarchies and communities with like building the structure. So this structure will also serve as an anchor point for a work we're going to show later in this biennial by Maria Hasabi. Maria Hasabi is a choreographer based in New York and Athens, and she will create a live choreography with live dancers surrounding City Hall. Another online offering we will have is made by James Alistair Sprang, a sound artist based in Philadelphia. James' work will unpack the ideas that have constituted white noise, and which will be offered as a soothing and a healing sound exercise. Another big project we have in our pipeline is a collaboration between Black Dance Theater Group, one of the prominent dance groups in the country, led by Nicole Ray, who's the choreographer of the Encore Group. Nicole will collaborate with Elisa Birnbaum, a sculpturist from New York City, on a commission projects that deal with notions of cyclicality too. We're gonna have a guest appearance by Sing Min Lee, a performance artist based in New York that will visit us as Kim Jong-un and other politicians post the election. We will also have Maya Stovall, probably. Maya Stovall is an artist based in Detroit, and she will rethink of Birth of a Nation. We'll reinterpret the film Birth of a Nation as an abstract light piece. And much more to tell, also by international artists. And this programming idea will enable us to be very flexible with the programming and to add more things as we go on. So now I want to jump to Jess Garland's project. And this is the project that we're probably going to follow up soon after Marina's and Jan Tichy. So I will introduce Jess first. Jess Garland is a Dallas-based multi-instrumentalist, single songwriter, and a recording and a performing artist. Jess has co-produced and composed the music for the film "Their Lives Mattered," a dialogue honoring stolen lives by Dallas law enforcement on September 5th at Texas Theater. The project is funded by the City of Dallas Office of Cultural Affairs. Jess is also the president and funding director of Swan Strings, a nonprofit organization for public music education and sound therapy that is made available for North Texas individuals without access. Jess recently released her first single, Glow, that's available on streaming platforms. And Jess's project that we're working on with Aurora currently addresses also different historical evolutions of contaminated sites around Dallas. The piece will include also extracted soundscapes from those contaminated sites. And with that, I wanna, hi Jess.
Hey,
How are you today?
I'm good. How are y'all?
I'm happy you could join us.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
So maybe I'll share my screen, and just to tell our audiences that the sites I'm going to show in the background are sites that have had different problematic waste handling. And Jess will talk more about that. Jess is currently working with Southern Sector Rising, an organization based in Dallas, meant to focus on the removal of the toxic shingle mountain. And I want to start maybe just by asking you how this work that we're currently working on connects to Dallas's history in the way you see it.
Yes, so the work that I'm doing is tackling environmental racism, but it also will address feminism from the Black woman's perspective as well. The project is, unfortunately, environmental racism in Dallas is a repeated set of circumstances that continues to keep happening. One of the sites is going to be in the Joppy neighborhood, which is a Freeman town in Dallas. And because it's the same part of Southern Dallas, there's also Trinity Audubon Center, which used to be an illegal dump site. And then obviously working with Southern Sector Rising, which is addressing Shingle Mountain, which is the current situation. So I just want to address like the history of it, just because outside of environmental racism, it's just flat out racism, you know. A part of Southern Dallas, or Southern Dallas in general, tends to be neglected from certain resources. These illegal sites and certain resources that are not accessible in Southern Dallas, these are things that just would not happen north of 30 at all. So these are just some of the things that I want to address, or that I am addressing in this project. From talking about the history from a Freeman's town to the Trinity Audubon Center to what's currently happening in our city with Shingle Mountain. So there's clearly a repeated cycle of this happening in our city. And even though there's a lot of fight to get Shingle Mountain removed right now, it's still really important to talk about something that's continuously happening in our city. And hopefully through art, we can kind of put this information out there to try to help prevent this from happening again in the future.
Thanks for that. Can you share with us some information about how you work with Southern Sector Rising, and both in terms of your activities, but also how you came together and what is your current work focused on?
Yes, so Marsha Jackson is the founder of Southern Sector Rising. Shingle Mountain lives literally in her backyard, in her neighborhood, and she reached out to me to create a video to send to City Council, just because she and her organization are trying to think of more creative ways to attack Shingle Mountain. They've tried everything, you know, they've gone to city council meetings, you know, they've written letters, they've done videos, they've done marches and protests. So they're trying to think of other creative ways to tell this story and to attack this issue. And so she's reached out to me to create a video to send to City Council, especially during these times, because it's difficult to attend these meetings. And that's something that I've done. And also have spoke with her about this particular project, where I can compose music or a soundscape with these particular sites. And outside of environmental racism, something that I do want to focus on is feminism from the Black woman's perspective. Marsha Jackson is an African-American woman, and obviously Southern Dallas is majority Black and brown neighborhood. But again, these are things that never would happen north of 30. Also, there are statistics that shows that, you know, when Black women feel unsafe, or that we feel in danger, or there's anything that we want to address, even in terms of COVID-19, hey, I feel sick here, can I get a test? You know, there's a lot of statistics that show that they turn Black and brown women away. So I do want to address that as well too. This is a woman that whose doctor is telling her, if you don't move, or if this Shingle Mountain doesn't move, you're gonna die, you know, but nobody's really hearing her, and it's still there, and it's been almost 3 years. So on top of environmental racism, I do want to share, I want to talk about feminism as well. And I do talk to Marsha directly and work with her directly about different ways that we can kind of address Shingle Mountain. And just, again, bigger than Shingle Mountain, there's just something that's currently happening in our city, which is also not the only thing that's happening in our city. We also have another neighborhood called Sand Branch that does not have access to clean water. So there's more than one thing happening in Dallas. Again, this is just another, this is just repetitive. This is a cycle that hopefully that I can show through sound composition, through loops, which is typically how I create my work, and through film as well.
Jess, thanks so much. I'm so happy we're gonna be able to work with you on this project and bring this to life, and hopefully also create a huge resource for information for Dallas communities that wants to learn more about this. So thank you for this, and I hope to see you in Dallas soon.
Thank
Now deliver the mic, the virtual mic, to my associate curators, Tamara and Trey, to introduce Jan.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, thank you, Noam. We're gonna get to Jan pretty quickly. We're gonna do a brief intro, but nobody is a better advocate for his work than him. So Jan Tichy is a Chicago-based artist and educator working at the intersection of video, sculpture, architecture, and photography. His conceptual work is socially and politically engaged. Jan is well known for his community-based initiatives that respond directly to local and contemporary issues such as the water crisis in Flint, Michigan, or Chicago public housing.
In 2014, Jan worked with over 60 local students in Flint and Lansing, Michigan, to talk openly about themes of social and restorative justice, resulting in a textured and poetic response that carves spaces for multiple perspectives and possibilities for the future. Jan received his MFA from the School of Art Institute of Chicago, where he now teaches as an associate professor at the Department of Photography and Art and Technology Studies.
So Jan, I think maybe it's best for you to briefly present your Aurora project, Remote Pyramids, and how this project is in the lineage of your past body of work that addresses public issues through a connection to architecture and public space by working with local students and to share and create histories.
Thank you, Tamara and Trey, for the introduction. I will try to do that. I came to visit Dallas following Noam's invitation on the eve of the pandemic. And I came to look for a community response to the latest decision by Governor Abbott to take Texas out of the federal refugee resettlement program. I met with AURORA Curators production team, that many of them are here with us, with artists, activists, and educators. I met with Jody, that is also here with us today, and her family. And this visit had a huge impact on me. And following on models of community engagement that I have developed in some of my previous projects, like Beyond Streaming in Michigan, that Dan just mentioned, connecting between teens from the water-poisoned Flint and teens from the state capital Lansing, I was interested in connecting a group of resettled refugee teenagers from Vickery Meadow to be in a creative dialogue with another local group with their own experience of migration. As an art educator, I was also interested in developing a collaborative relationship with local educators and work with them and through them with the next generation of local artists and activists. With Jody's encouragement, I reached out to Oak Cliff, specifically to educator and designer Laura Quintero from Molina House School, that is here with us today as well. And later to Maria Williams, teacher and activist from Jody's Lake Highland High School, that join us with years of experience with working with refugee teens. We spent April and May meeting weekly talking about the upcoming COVID summer and what it will mean for local teenagers and what we can do about it. With that also came the realization that we are going to be operating on a completely new platform that allowed 3 of us to meet weekly in Dallas and that will allow me to work with teenagers across the country as close as anybody, as close as their own local educators, operating at that moment like me from their kitchen tables. And this major shift in the possibilities and understanding of community engagement practice was a really important moment. And so together we developed the curriculum for the remote Aurora Summer Art Workshop that after teaching it this summer, we will be offering the syllabi on our project website to any educators interested in using it and developing it to their needs and to the needs of their communities. We started the workshop in June as any group of strangers getting to know each other, sharing our concerns about what was happening around us and outside. Responding to the events of early summer, we created protest banners and discussed the uprising. We looked at the place we take here on this earth and drafted land acknowledgements, acknowledging the history of stolen land we live on. We questioned the history and the way it is celebrated and proposed new monuments for public spaces that are owned by and represent the community around. We tried to listen to the needs of the communities and formulated our concerns in questions for the mayor. We discussed these concerns with local artists and activists that visited our workshop. Jinya from Breaking Bread, Breaking Borders asked us to be activists on behalf of our communities. We looked on the objects of heritage that our families brought with them coming to America and acknowledged the importance and value of our past. Eva Arakin from De Colores Radio and Sarah Mokuria from Mothers Against Police Brutality urged us to listen to the people around us, to our communities and their concerns and act. We also acquired new tools for our artistic expression. We turned our cell phones into recording devices for photography, video, and sound to explore the public spaces and communities around us. We learned how to animate. We met with the Chicago-based photographer Sofia Lopez and explored animation with the Palestinian artist Noura Husseini. In August, we had our last visitor for the summer, the local artist and activist Giovanni Valderas, that talked to us about our proposal for art in communal public spaces. There were 10 students that finished the 3 months of intensive weekly workshops, and half of them found the calling and became artists working on actual artworks that will activate public spaces in their communities and tell their stories of migration. There is Alexander and Andres working on a mural for Oak Cliff that will feature a small library and create an outdoor communal space that is so needed now. They will collaborate with local muralists to paint the work. Sumaya Saki from Pakistan is developing a printed work that will be produced in collaboration with local Riso Bar. Judy Carcho and Joseph Delgado were so generous to join us today here and talk about their experience and hopes. Judy is developing a stop-motion animation reflecting on how we immigrants are changed by the societies we integrate into. And we will project the final work in public-facing communal spaces in Vickery Meadow. Josephat is developing a series of panels telling his family migration history from Mexico to America that will be installed in Sweet Pass Sculpture Park and hopefully become a permanent installation later in the new city development of Chalk Hill Trail. We hope that these projects that are in production as we speak can make their way into the public spaces of Dallas before the December holidays, accompanied by website connecting between and providing the content behind them, like the recorded stories that the artists collected from their families and communities over the summer and inspired their artwork. And I hope to return to Dallas in January, exactly a year after Governor Abbott's declaration. I will be coming, though, after working for 6 months weekly with these amazing artists and thoughtful educators, and hopefully ready to offer my creative tools to help to communicate the concerns of these young artists from Vickery Meadow and Oak Cliff on the walls of the Dallas City Hall, and connect it to their public works and to the digital space we have carved this summer together. Thank you.
Thanks, Jan.
Yes, thank you so much, Jan. I can say that personally, following this project has been a light during a very strange and isolating time. So thank you for that. I also would like to formally introduce these two young artists that Jan has been working with, Judy Karchu from Lake Highland High School and Josefat Delgado from Moises E. Molina High School. Welcome.
Hey, Judy and Joseph. Judy, I want to start with you. I want to show the animation that Jan described, and I want to ask you a question. So you guys started this workshop back in June with 14 meetings, and the pandemic had already kind of forced us to shelter in place and shift our mode of communication and interaction. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about this 3-month online workshop or a type of Zoom summer school with Jan, and how you feel about the process over time and how that changed your relationship to it and your work.
Thank you. With Zoom and everything, it was definitely different from just normal classrooms. I feel like for me, the most change was just being comfortable with my ideas, even if they weren't complete, or even if my sketches were not perfect. Being on Zoom definitely was different, and it introduced sort of a different personal experience, because we're in our rooms, our houses, and we're showing parts of our lives that you wouldn't see on like a meeting room or something like that. So that was very helpful in just developing the personal connections with everyone.
Great. Okay, Josephat, you're up. So you've been working on developing a public project that helps to visualize immigrant stories to be installed outside. Can you describe your project and why you want to bring this type of storytelling to the public in Dallas?
Yeah, thank you, Trey. So it started when we met with Breaking Bread Foundation, or Breaking Borders, Breaking Bread, and how they told stories through the people that they were working with. It was very inspiring, and in a way I got inspiration from that. So I developed some sketches because we had a project or an assignment to record a story of people around us in our community, and it was very inspiring, and I drew some pictures and it started developing from there. The one on the left, it's of my sister. She's like a first generation immigrant, and she's very successful. She went into the military, she did her service, and then she got out and she went to college, a very expensive college, and she was very successful. And through that, I felt like a lot of people could relate in the community as well. And yeah, I felt that was very inspirational. And the one on the right, it resembles me and which path I'm taking in life right now, because I'm still very young and I'm trying to see where I'm going in life. And a lot of people could relate to that. And the one on the left is of my teacher. She sent me a story explaining her life, and the adults on the right is her mother, and on the left is her, and how she, in her story, she talked about how she got inspiration from her mother, and she would watch her paint and all this, and from that she got interested in interior design and decided to work in that area of life. And yeah. And then the one on the right is of my mother. She's a first generation, or she is an immigrant. She came from Mexico to the United States. And in here, she told me her story, and it was very powerful because she told me how whenever she came over, she didn't speak any English, and it was very difficult for her. And she just kept on working on her English, and she took a class in order to develop her more strongly in the United States, and she got bullied and all this. But through it all, she kept her eyes on the prize.
Thank you, Josephat. I can't wait to see these in the park. Okay, back to you, Monica.
Thank you, everyone. That was fantastic for speaking and giving your presentations about what everyone can expect in the upcoming biennial program. Now we can sort of open it up to Q&A. There are some questions out there. Yeah, so any questions? Or actually, first off, is there anyone from the group that has a question from someone else on the group at all? I mean, actually, one thing I would like to ask Noam, can you give us sort of like a feeling of like, how did Marina come about to come up with this composition that's going to be played by the trumpet player when people come into this garage experience? This is going to be the first project that the public is going to see for the biennial. So I want to give a little bit of like maybe insight to that.
Okay, it's hard for me to answer on behalf of Marina how she came up with the composition, but I'll try to give some background about that. So maybe just to add a few more details. So as we said, it's a work of art that is made for a single vehicle. It's short, but it's not about the time, because we all know how time is stretched and modulated right now. And then once the car faces the musician starts playing this composition. This role is will be performed by Freddie Jones and Rachel Samoya. Both of them are highly notable jazzists based in Dallas. And after the viewers will experience this individual performance, they will keep on driving up 2 more floors, where in these floors, we're gonna have a 16 channels sound installation. And in it, those vocals, those audio pieces will be remixed in a recursive manner. So basically part of the recordings are already made in advance, but the way they're going to unfold in space will also mimic their way they're going to be shaped up in space, because sound basically gets its shape from the architecture and the space that it happens at. So in that sense, there is the specificity of the place and the time, of course. And also another thing that this installation in this architecture is going to create is this sense of decay. As one faces the trumpets, there is this loud salute that kind of like brings you to the public. But as you go up, you go further away from this apparatus that wants to raise the ideas about the public. So once people will look out to the 12th floor, when they can see 360 views of downtown Dallas, they will also face a shape. And this abstract shape is the other, let's say, organ of this piece. It's a piece that is made from 2 organs that are interchangeable, and one of them is a billboard. One will be on the top of that building, and the other one is going to be in another location in Dallas. And those 2 will basically compile the idea of what is this shape of listening and how we can think through our ways of comprehending sound into other faculties that articulating notions about the public, the individual, and what's between them.
Thank you so much, Noam. So we have another question, or one question, sorry, first question. To the students, Josephat and Judy, has any of the work that you're doing in this project with Jan, has it changed the way that you view Dallas?
I definitely wasn't that into news, especially like I mean, I'm new to Dallas. This is my 4th year, and I never really like at least watched the news. But as we were, talking about like recent events and all that, I started to be more involved in news and things like that.
The project that I'm doing is giving me a better perspective that everyone has a story, and we may not know it, but everyone has like a special thing that they have in their life. Like I didn't know anything about that of my mom or my sister or my teacher, but it was really interesting to get inside of other people's lives.
There's one more question to you for Jess. Jess, how did you discover this site, Shingle Mountain, and start becoming interested and engaged also with the woman you were speaking about?
Well, I'm born and raised in Dallas. So, for example, with Trinity Audubon Center, like I remember seeing it when it was an illegal dump to turning into what it is now. But in terms of Shingle Mountain, I have a lot of other artist friends. Mothers Against Police Brutality works with Southern Sector Rising, and I have some other friends and artists and colleagues that work with Southern Sector Rising as well, to kind of get me a little bit more informed about what was going on in that particular part of the neighborhood, which is all like a trifecta. There's like Joppy, Trinity Audubon Center, and then Shingle Mountain. They're all maybe within like 5 minutes from each other in that particular part of Southern Dallas. But the moment that I got really more involved was the moment when Southern Sector Rising asked me to create a video, because they wanted to hear from, again, just trying to think of more creative ways to address this. And they wanted to hear from artists. They wanted to hear from other people than like, anyone else that may typically kind of bring up this issue. They felt like my presence would kind of bring some more attention to it and kind of help it. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got a little bit more involved in it.
Great, thank you. Okay, this question is to anyone that would like to respond, actually. So, how has the disconnect of a digital and physical distance? How is the disconnect of having this digital and physical distance that we're in right now, this the COVID situation where we have to be distant from each other? How does it change the way? I'm all hands. How has it changed the way that we feel connected in your perspective, and specifically geared towards creation? So maybe Jan, if you want to maybe respond to that.
We all moved online, and as an educator, as a professor, it caught me in the middle of the semester, like everybody else. I think what was specifically new, apart from the fact what I was talking before, the fact that the possibility of working online in the sense of community engagement allows the artist to be much more present. But I think that there was something new with this group of artists for me, because apart from Jody, I never met anybody. Neither the educators that I have been working with. And I feel after these 4 or 5 months that I'm very close to them and that I know them, or at least part of their lives. And that it allowed me to share from my knowledge the way that I wouldn't probably be able to do that if I would be coming for a weekend to Dallas. And really be with them and not just share, but support and work together. So from this perspective, this digital shift was really creative for us.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's created a lot of scenarios that's forced us to be extra creative and like find new solutions for things that we never had to even dream about how we would have to overcome them too. Does anyone else have something to say towards that?
What Jan said is the fact that the educators have never had a chance to meet Jody and Josephat. It's because you're in remote, right? It's because school never happened.
Well, I was talking about me never meeting physically the educators in Dallas. I met them, just over the phone, and then we moved to Zoom, and that's how we operate. That's how we are to each other.
I was just going to say, yesterday, Judy was talking about, we were kind of talking about the same question, and she was saying that being remote actually felt a little bit more personal because you're kind of seeing, you're in everybody's house. You're in everybody's bedroom or their kitchen or their, living room. So it actually feels a little bit more personal than maybe meeting in a classroom or an office. And, when we were talking, I think she was sitting on her bed. And, Trey and I were thinking, yeah, we would probably never be having this conversation sitting with you in your bedroom. So, in weird ways, it feels almost more personal, at the same time feeling very, feeling kind of isolated. So it's a strange, bittersweet, I think.
Well, thank you so much. I think we're good on time. And so thank you to all the panelists. That was fantastic. And for your time, and also to everyone who attended, we thank you. And we also welcome you to submit questions, like I was saying before, after the presentation, to info@dallasaurora.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we also have a newsletter that you can register for, where you can keep up with all of our events coming up through the Aurora Biennial, but also through our Aurora Expanded program, which is through what Area 3 is being presented, and also for our Artist Relief Fund grants, which we should have some coming up very soon. Thank you so much, and we are excited to get this all started and welcome you to our upcoming programming. Thanks. Ciao.